and this is what remains. This is a new series where we're going to be covering the York, Market Weighton and Beverley Railway. It's a disused line now, and it was all pulled up thanks to Dr. Beeching. At the moment I'm stood on Beverley Railway Station, and this is the live line, what is behind me there, from Hull to Scarborough. Our line did come along here a little bit, only for probably about 500 yards or so, before it then diverged off at Beverley North signal box, which is our third signal box that we will be passing today. And then it went off towards Cherry Burton. That'll be in the next episode. But while I'm here on this Beverley Railway Station, I'll show you what's here, what used to be here, and what remains today, if anything at all. On Beverley Station we have a lovely North Eastern Railway map, and what I can do is I can point out what's happening. So we're at Beverley. This line was never built, and we're going to be following here, Cherry Burton, Kipling Courts, Market Weighton. We may well continue on to Lawnsborough, Pock, Fangfoss, Stamford Bridge, Holtby, Wart Hill, Earswick, and then into York. But for now we're going to concentrate on getting to Market Weighton. If we look at this map a little bit more closer, we've got Driffield here, and we've already covered this railway line, and we uncovered some fantastic history about that, so go back and watch that series. Another line that we've followed was this line from Driffield through Southburn, Bayton, Enthorpe, Market Weighton, and then straight on through to Selby. We've just finished this railway line, so go back and watch that series, and then this one we're going to get through to Market Weighton. Once we finish with Beverley Station, the goods sheds and surrounding area, we'll be going up to those crossings there, which is Cherry Tree, and then to the next one, which is Beverley North. All this was the goods yards. All that there, what you're looking at there, was all the goods yards, and we'll go around there and we'll have a look and see if we can find anything that remains today. As you can see, Beverley Station has still got a roof on it. It's not the original roof. It's certainly no way as fancy as what the original roof would have been. But the original roof used to have stanchions down the centre of the line to support it, and it was known as a tram shed roof, or a train shed roof. Now, the York and Beverley line was a line that went to Market Weighton originally and stopped because of the collapse of the railway bubble and George Hudson's nefarious dealings. And the construction, which is the first part what we're doing, which will be going to Market Weighton, was continued 17 years later. The York to Market Weighton was opened in 1847, so the part we're doing was constructed 17 years later. And it was done by the North Eastern Railway, and it was opened in 1865. And this was Market Weighton that became a junction station when the Selby and Market Weighton line opened in 1848. This was long before the Market Weighton to Driffield section opened. So the York to Beverley had 13 intermediate stations, which is mainly bridges once we leave Beverley, as it inclines into the Wolds until it peaks up at near Kipling Courts, which is quite an interesting place in itself. Now, as we're walking around the station, we've got a clock up there. I remember coming here as a kid. That clock's been there forever. A lot of these rooms were waiting rooms. The station master had domestic rooms on here because he didn't live on site. He wasn't on the station, and I'll show you where that was. And we're just looking around, panning around the station for you, and there's our live lines. There's no trains today for a good couple of hours because we're here bright and early. And we're approaching a railway bridge, which I'll take you across as well. That's a typical northeastern style railway. So we'll go over to that bridge and I'll show you some other things that remain. Now, this line was closed because of Dr. Richard Beeching. He published a paper called Reshaping the Railways, which recommended the closure of numerous railway lines, including the York to Beverley to improve efficiency and reducing costs. Beeching argued that the line was unprofitable despite covering 80% of its operating costs, and that passengers could travel between Beverley, Hull and York via Selby, which you can no longer do. I'll just show you around this bridge. We've filmed one of these before at Garforth, which is now gone. This used to be the station master's garden around here, and the station master's house was over the road over there, which I'll show you that in a moment, but it's all been torn up. There are some pictures. I'm going to put loads of pictures up of this place. And there are some pictures with this bridge in the background. The York to Beverley line, which is a part of the larger Hull to York line, closed in November 1965, with the last train running on the 27th of November. High operating costs were to blame. The line's operating costs significantly exceeded its revenue, while the line, costing over £107,000 to operate, was only bringing in a revenue of £90,000. This has been debated that it was a profitable line or not profitable, but ultimately it was going to go because Beeching's attitude was all lines should lead to London. Why would they keep a line that leads from York to Beverley? It's also the duplicate route, because you could go through Selby, which is now closed, and it's very difficult to get to York now. So let's look towards Hull. We've still got a signal box that remains here. That building that you can see there to your left is a crossing keeper's cottage. Down there to the right there was some goods sheds, and down there to the left of the line was some goods sheds also. So we're going to get down to the bottom of this bridge. So we're now approaching the upside of the platform here at Beverley. But this car park here, this used to have platform on it as well, and this used to be for goods down the back of here too. But again, that's all gone. Some of the stations on this line had very small catchments, like Kipling Courts. Only 100 people lived there, and they still built a station. In the first 12 months after this line opened, it generated £971. Now I'm just going to show you this here, because this brick arch, and there's that metalwork at the top there. This was a door, because there was another platform at the other side. Whilst they've done a very good job to try and do it in keeping, you can clearly see it's a more modern brick, more modern cement, and more modern pointing. And down at the bottom there as well, we can see it's all new sandstone. But what gives it away is that metalwork up there, because this would have had sliding wooden doors. And there's another one further up as well. So yeah, it generated £971 in coaching revenue and £1,335 in freight and rents, costing a total of £236. Now with automated barriers coming in, this is why our signal boxes have been destroyed at that end, but we have got some wonderful photographs of those. Beverley signal box still stands, and that's currently a grade 2 listing building, so hopefully that one's going to be protected and remain. Now I'm just going to So there has been some restoration efforts for this railway line to reopen from Beverley to York, which I think in fairness there is a demand for it in the modern era. Now this is our second doorway. Again, we've got the metalwork at the top, more modern brick and pointing. You can see that compared to, yeah, this has been updated a little bit, but that's a genuine brick. So that would have been through onto the other goods platform. So this would have been the Hull, Beverley, Market Weighton, Pockleton, Stamford Bridge, York. Would be a huge benefit to the region. There is a road called the A1079 that goes from Hull to York, and if anyone's ever driven on that in peak time will know you don't drive on it on peak time. It is absolutely chock-a-block and a nightmare. So this would be a very good commuter line. There has been progress in 2024 where they gained funding to do some engineering works to see if it's actually a viable line. And yet any further action is to go on there. This is our third arch with the metalwork at the top, which have had wooden slats. If you've ever been to Driffield railway station, the doors still exist. And that's what would have covered these up. We shall probably go around the back of this station to see what's on the back of those. So there's a local MP called Graham Stewart. He's for the Beverley and Holderness region, and he's very vocal and supportive of this railway line being opened. Now we're going to do see something quite nice here, because you can see all the platform edges there have been redone, and down here. But if you look underneath, you can see some brickwork that's sticking out, and then we've got some original platform there at this side. It's all fenced off, you can't walk onto there, which is a shame, but it's a lower platform because trains are a lot taller now. We can see the slope there where it's raised up for the modern height platform. So that is one of our older platforms. So we'll have a quick look around what's at Beverley Station today, and then we'll head up there to our first crossing, which is Cherry Tree. I've now come round the back of the up platform where there was another goods platform. It's now a car park. Nothing remains but the back of the railway station. I'll show you what I can see. So the line would have diverged off up there, controlled by Cherry Tree junction box, signal box. Coming down here, I am roughly at what the platform level is, because this has all been altered and filled in, and I know that because look, these are the back of the doors that I was showing you, and you can clearly see I'm more or less level with that. So I am at platform level. I mean, if we dug down a little bit, there might even be a platform down there. But the back isn't as in good a condition as what the public see all the time, so they do need to come out and do a bit of pointing here, because you can see the bricks are starting to come away. But I wanted to just tell you that we've still got the original iron windows in here, and we can see the rust coming from those. They are rather nice. You can see which is the original glass as well, more than likely, which is crazy. Now that building in front of us there is a crossing keeper's cottage, and that's where we're going next. Now I'm going to stand on the corner and I'm going to tell you some things that used to be around there. That's the back of the station, and this is Beverley signal box, which remains. As I mentioned, it's a grade 2 listed building, but we've also still got the crossing keeper's cottage here as well. And there's a lovely little photograph I've come across where there's the family of the crossing keeper's cottage stood here, probably I think it's around 1906, and I'll insert that for you. Now down there is another crossing with a photograph looking this way, so I'm going to go down there and I'm going to replicate that photo. I was hoping to match up a photograph, but it's not possible. Things change, roads move, and that's what's happened here on this footbridge that I'm on, near what's called Fleming Gate Crossing. And I'll show you. That's where the current crossing is, and I'm on a big cast iron bridge. But if we look down there at the steps, that road never existed. That's a completely new road, and there used to be a little white fence there, and then just where it goes round that return, that used to be a foot crossing. But obviously we can't get on the railway track today, and the reason I wanted to come down here was to show you this. That's Beverley railway station up there. On this side there was a mill or some description that had a tower coming out the top and a crane that would go over the track, and on this side was another goods shed, and there is a photograph with this bridge in it, or a version of this bridge, not this particular one, looking that way, and you can see on either side of the track the goods shed on this side and the factory on that side. And there used to be all engineering works around here and all chemical plants and all sorts of things around in this area. But if you look, there is a switch over on the lines up there, and that's actually in the photographs, more or less in the same place. What you can see behind me is Beverley railway station and Beverley crossing. I am stood in what was once the station master's garden. It's all been demolished, it's all been redeveloped, and nothing remains. Not even a plaque to say this is where he lived. I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to point you a few little things out, and I'm going to tell you about Beverley railway station. Now I'm here with my brother today, so you might see him in some of the background shots. That is Beverley railway station, huge building, still got the roof on because it served a huge community, so there was a lot here at one time. There's the bridge that we've already looked at. There's our crossing signal box, and this used to be a walled garden along this edge. The shape of it has changed and everything. This is probably about correct, and that's probably about correct, and this is correct, but I think this road has been altered here because the station master had a square garden and it was a walled garden. His house is roughly where that clock tower is, and then behind that there was an engineering company called Armstrong's, and they had a big old tower up there. I have managed to find some aerial photographs of this, so I will try and label things up and say, point out what things were, because it's so different, it's difficult to know. So that was where the station master's house was. That going up there is Railway Street, because that would lead you down straight into the railway station just over there, which used to have a canopy on it at one time, and there is a photograph of that. So let's just go over to Beverley railway station and have a look at the frontage. What we are looking at there straight ahead is Railway Street, but the roads have obviously been redeveloped, so there would never have been a roundabout there. But I would be stood on the road that would take you directly into the station. Now we'll look at the arch above that doorway there, very distinctive of the architect of these railways. So Beverley Railway Station was opened in October 1846 by the York and North Midland Railway. The original station, which is what we're looking at today, except for a few minor alterations like the canopy's gone, was designed by George Townsend Andrews, an Essex-born architect, and he designed more than 60 stations for the York and North Midland Railway. We'll go up and have a little bit closer look at some of these. He designed all the buildings, not just the stations, for the York and North Midland. That would include all your railway cottages and everything, and that's why they all have that same distinctive arch. Andrews was an architect that set up business in York and became friends with George Hudson, and that's why he got all these done. He is actually buried in York, and I would quite like to go visit his grave and try and find it and see what sort of headstone he has and just have a look around. Now, a lot of these buildings now are probably more than likely offices and storerooms and things like that for the domestic staff that work here, and perhaps a staff room, but it did have all sorts going on. There was waiting rooms, there was porters' rooms, there was a station master's office, as well as he had a couple of domestic rooms here as well, because he lived across the road just over there. Beverley gained junction status 19 years later in 1865 when the North Eastern Railway completed the section to Market Weighton, which is what we're following. The station was also planned to be a junction for the North Holderness Light Railway, but that was never built. As we approach here, I'm just going to show you some of the detail up at the top of the building there. And we've got these wonderful columns here with the scrolls at the top. The station, as we've already been on, two facing platforms, and it had what was known as a train shed roof, which had columns between the tracks, and it still has that distinctive North Eastern Railway footbridge, what we've already had a look at today. The three signal boxes, one we've already seen, which is on Beverley. The next one we'll be going to will be at Cherry Tree, and then the one after that will be on Hullbridge Road, which is known as Beverley North. Now, the goods yards were extensive. We're going to be having a look around those. We had coal depots, cattle docks and pens. On the south side of the station, where we've just been, we had a large bricks goods shed and a warehouse on the other side. The level crossing used to go alongside the station buildings at the east side, which is where we've been going on now. The main freight that was handled here, just have a look, we've got the toilets outside here, all locked up. There's absolutely no way that they're original, unlike the one at Selby, which would be nice to have a look at. So the main freight handled here was cement, cake oil, grain, manure and livestock. Now this bit where I'm stood now is what was once the garden, the station master's garden for the station, which he used to tend, as well as having a huge property over there and a walled garden there. So I don't know how he found time to manage a station. Now we've got a piece of original wall in here. It's been modified slightly, lowered probably. And then we've got the bridge there, which is in some of the shots of the garden that was here, so hopefully I can find some of those and put those up for you. We'll just walk around back onto what I believe is the up platform, because what I'll try and do is I'll try and get you a little bit closer to the signal box. Now, it was once a thriving community because we had all the railway cottages, which I'll be showing you, as well as all the staff that worked here, the goods yard way over there, the goods platform at the back of the station here. We had railway warehousing and goods sheds down that side, as well as at least 3 signal boxes on our route, and then more signal boxes going the other way. So just before we leave, that's your signal box. This is grade 2 listed. This is the only one that remains. We've got a train on our way now. Probably a northern train, so we'll see what we've got coming, and then we'll get on our way, leave Beverley station behind us as we continue our journey, and we'll go up to Cherry Tree signal box next. After leaving Beverley railway station, we come to the second signal box that we have on our route heading towards Market Weighton. This was Cherry Tree Crossing, and this controlled the extensive goods yards that were here. I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you where it was. This was the site of the Cherry Tree signal box, which controlled these gates and access to the extensive goods yards, which were over there. Now we've got a building there still that remains. That was there when the signal box was here, roughly about where that delve in the land is, where this pole is, and slightly over this way because it was huge. And then just past there, that building what remains today, I'm going to put some photographs up and you'll see that building, a big building in front of it, and then the signal box here. All that was the goods yard, and we're going to go up there and I'll show you where that was. Now I'll ask you to take note of that black fence there, and then the sort of silvery metal coloured fence a bit further on. Once we've had a look at those, we will go further down the line to our third signal box, which was Beverley North, and that was on Hullbridge Road. Now there are some barriers just down there, some wickets. That is where the next signal box will be, but we'll just have a quick look around the goods yard, and then not too far from there we would diverge off going towards Market Weighton. When I pointed out the black fence, this is it here behind me. The goods yard has been completely obliterated and there's only one little thing left, and I'll show you that before we leave. But I'm going to pan the camera around for you and I'll show you what's here now. But the size of the land is massive. I'm poking you over the fence to the live line, which is the Hull to Scarborough line, and to the Cherry Tree crossing up there, which is where the signal box was. I'm studying what was the goods yards, and this is roughly where the line started coming off into the goods yard. As you can see, these are all more modern buildings. I think this is about 1990s that. But all this car park, the space up here, where them new builds are there, up until the far roofs was all the goods yards. Over there is the railway cottages which backed onto the goods yards, which I will show you. They were extensive at Beverley, and this wasn't the only goods yard. The railway station being over there, as we've already found out, there was more goods yards over there. But roughly where that blue cabin is, that is kind of where the goods platform for the cattle was, and the cattle pens. The silver fence that I pointed out to you earlier is in that area there. That's all private land. There was a couple of sheds here as well, but nothing as big as what they used to be over there. So this is the cattle area around here, and various other goods would come in here. There's one part of the goods yard remaining, and I will show you that when we get over there where that low roof is. And then we'll also show you the railway cottages which used to back onto the goods yards. The tall chimney in the background is where we were just at, this building here. I'm still stood in the goods yards. I'm going to turn the camera around because there's just nothing left except for one little piece, a boundary line. But I can show you a bit more of what I'm looking at. Through that fence there, this was all goods yards. I can poke you through here because it went up to that, a little bit beyond the greenery that you can see there, that hedge with that trailer. All these buildings here are new. These were never here. These have all been built on the goods yards. And over the back there is the railway cottages, which we'll go to next. But I want to show you the only thing that we can find that is of railway era in this area. There'd be no other reason for it to be here, because of its age and because of the type of stonework that's on top of it, is this wall here. This will be in a boundary marker for the railway yard. A boundary wall made of brick, stone round copings on the top there, and that's pretty much all we can find of these yards. I'm now stood outside the railway cottages, which are known as Railway Terrace. It is quite a busy street, even though it's early on the morning, but we're very near the railway station and what was the goods yard. Those new builds there, what you can see, are built on what was the goods yard. It's very likely this wall at the end here had something to do with the railways. But these cottages here, or terraced houses, were built for the railways. And I'm certain that these backed onto the goods yards, because I've seen a photograph looking down that passageway there, and you can see some goods wagons through there. But it's these ones here all the way to the end. They don't have the typical GT Andrews chimneys on them, and some of them have been replaced, but some of them do look very old. But this is the railway cottages. Now it's time for us to move to our third signal box as we leave Beverley. Just before we do move down to our third signal box, this is the back of the railway terrace, and where I'm stood is still goods yard. This is the railway terrace. These ones here to that white one at the end, and there's that passage is there. Now when I've seen a picture, it's been through that looking here, and this is still part of the goods yard where the coal drops once were. Now there's no brick wall there behind these cottages, so whether they just opened up onto the back of this, I don't know. Again, there's just nothing left. This shed is a modern build. There's just nothing here. It did go right up to the edge there, and earlier on where you showed you the station master's house, that's roughly over there where them signs are, where you can see the Beverley sign. It's around that area, maybe a bit more that way actually. But now we will get down to Beverley third and final signal box before we leave to join our line to Market Weighton. So we are now at the location of Beverley North, which is on Hullbridge Road, and there was a crossing keeper's cottage here, and it's still here today. I'll show you that now. So this is the crossing keeper's cottage. They've aptly named it Railway Cottage. Again, another GT Andrews design. I'm going to go over to the crossing because we'll be able to see a little bit more of the building's design. So I'll pop you up there and you can see the chimney, typical of this railway. Now this is the crossing, what used to be managed by a manned signal keeper, and it probably would have operated the line to Market Weighton. Now our crossing box was here, the signal box was there, known as Beverley North. And just a little way up there is where our line will have diverged off up to Market Weighton. If I point you back down this way, you can see Beverley Railway Station in the distance, and we can see a little bit more of the crossing keeper's cottage there. Now I don't know if we can go on that land up there because it's private, it belongs to a rugby club, but I will find out. At this point now, we've left our crossing, Beverley North. There is a bit of land that we could walk along, but unfortunately there are children on there playing rugby, so we're not going to go on there and we're not going to film on there. but it's only about 100 yards where the junction was to where we are now. We are now on the track bed and it's a raised embankment. This is where it becomes interesting because we can walk all the way to Market Weighton from here, and that is what we're going to do. This for us is where we're looking for the relics to see what's left behind. Everything we've seen so far is still there. So if you want to know what remains on this railway, hit that subscribe button because this is where we're going to be picking up in the next episode. If you feel like it, please buy a coffee in the link down below. I'm also trying to save up for some camera equipment and I need your help for that, so I've started a GoFundMe because I want to take you some places that are a bit more risky, a bit more dangerous and a bit more underground. In the meantime, please take care and I'll see you in the next one.